Welcome to the Caregiving Podcast. I'm Inga.
And I'm Julie.
And long story short, we have Caregiving. We are two momtrepreneurs who have built an in-home care business from the ground up, guided every step of the way by God's care and fueled by agape love. Almost 14 years later, we felt called to create this podcast as a resource for families with caregiving needs. Whether you care for a family member or are looking for advice on professional caregiving, we want this to be a platform to support you.
Each week, we will come to you with encouraging stories of families who have found the right balance for their loved ones, tips for how to care for them and you, and much more. We hope you continue to join us each week as we share in this exciting new journey together.
Hello, Sunshines, and hello, Julie.
Hello, Inga.
How are you?
I'm fabulous.
Fabulous.
Mm-hmm.
Do elaborate.
Just drank my lunch.
Slim fast it is.
It is.
Got rid of your slim fast stash.
Yeah.
So no mustachio.
Off with the stash.
How is that treating you? How do you like the old slim fast?
I hate it.
Is it better than vegetables though?
Yes, it is. Yes, it is.
I'm wondering if when we talk about our topic today of oxygen, is there going to be anything in here about diet and exercise?
I think we might be off the hook for once. I don't know. I don't remember anything about diet and exercise. Well, if you exercise, you breathe deep.
And then you get more oxygen?
Yeah, and then you're hungry, so there
then
goes the diet.
Fast.
Yeah. So, yes.
Yeah, so I do have to say, actually, since you've been on the slim fast, you have been pretty nice to deal with. You haven't been angry. You haven't been.
I'm always nice.
I'm not. When I'm not eating what I want to eat.
Mm-hmm. Oh, I get you. I have cut out lunch
Yes.
with the, and I haven't been cranky about it.
Yes.
Ew. Okay. I just thought I was nicer now that I was on Slim Fast. I was like, dude, I've always been a big, bright ball of sunshine.
Yes, you are all of those things. Bright, ball, sunshine, all of them.
Round as a ball. Thus, the Slim Fast. Okay.
I was just meaning that it has not impacted you in a negative fashion. That you're not having lunch, that you're having slim fast in place
I'm madder
of.
than hell about it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I would never know. You're taking it like a champ.
Thank you.
Yep. That's because all we allow is champions here.
Don't remind me.
Okay.
Now I'm depressed.
So that being said, have you ever had breathing problems?
No. And I'm glad because it's scary when that happens.
Yep.
Yeah.
I've only ever had, I've had a couple panic or anxiety attacks in my life, which are not pleasant. But that gets really tight and just panicky.
Well, actually, now that you say that, I've been with people that have had something traumatic happen, or they're like the other day when I was getting an IV taken, I was like, breathe, because you forget to. You tighten up and you just everything clenches, and it's like you're supposed to just, everybody
breathe in, out, wax on, wax off.
Yes.
Yeah, it's true though.
Right?
Actually, when you get in stressful situations like that, I think about when I'm at the dentist or anything like that that's unpleasant. MRI.
Oh, yeah.
They had to completely knock me out because otherwise I would have never made it.
Yeah.
But yeah, you just kind of stop breathing.
Stop breathing. Remember our little gal that had the heat stroke?
Oh yeah.
It was just like, just big breaths.
Yep.
You're going to be okay. Just big breaths. Now let it out because you just clam up. Just tighten everything. All of the orifices.
Yep. Not a good thing.
That's a good word.
Orifices. All right. Well, on that note, let's go to our verse of the week.
Yes.
This is Job chapter 33, verse 4. The Spirit of God has made me. The breath of the Almighty gives me life.
We're going to be talking about oxygen.
Did you just type in a verse that oxygen?
Breathing, life. Yeah, no.
You just go and it comes to you.
Yeah.
Spirit of God has made me. The
Isn't
breath
that a
of the
good one?
Almighty gives me life.
Yep.
All right. Well, if you are out there and you have a verse to share with us, we need verses for Julie to pick from. So please email those to thecaregivingpodcast@gmail.com.
Yes.
And what did you bring for an uplifting story today?
Oh, my word. We had a gal in Australia, Jean Bickington.
Bickington. That's a fun last name.
She was turning 100 years old, and she basically was marking things off of her bucket list. And one of the things that's never happened in her life is she's never got arrested. So,
wow, all the way to 100.
So the cops arrest the 100-year-old at her birthday party to tick it off of her bucket list. But basically, they did go ahead and make sure that everybody else at the assisted living knew what was going on. But anyway, they went ahead and they put her in cuffs. And they placed her under arrest.
Oh my
and while she was celebrating her birthday, she wore a crown and her pink dress.
Oh.
And so basically the statement to tell everybody was that they quickly briefed the residents of the event to assure that no one was in trouble. And the officers gently placed handcuffs on her, declaring her officially under arrest. She did not resist. And then they put it in the paper, and it was just a big deal for her. And she said, "I've never been arrested in my life. I said to them, I've never been drunk, and I've never been arrested, never lost my driving license, and never had an infringement."
Oh, how cute.
It's cute.
That's awesome. I don't know that would be on my bucket list, but it's awesome that people made that happen for her. 100 years old, wanted to get arrested. Yeah. Awesome. Well, I found one, Proverbs and sayings about old age and wisdom. I thought this was pretty cool. Basically, this is an African proverb, and it says, "Those who respect the elderly pave their own road toward success." And it goes on to say, the African continent has a rich heritage of passing down stories and beliefs from older adults to the younger, often in the form of oral storytelling. These oral traditions typically teach socially acceptable behaviors and values within family and entire communities. As the African proverb depicts, when you respect the elderly, you lay down a path towards honor and prosperity.
Isn't that awesome?
Yeah, I thought that was awesome. And then there's a Chinese saying that says, "An elderly person at home is like a living golden treasure."
Oh.
So it says, in today's increasingly Western influenced China, many families still follow the Confucian tradition of respecting elders as the highest virtue. In traditional Chinese culture, the young through middle-aged receive little attention on their birthdays. Families celebrate decade birthdays starting at age 60. With each new decade reached comes an even bigger party and more significant celebratory gifts. In this way, an aging loved one is treated like a treasured gem.
Oh, my word.
Isn't that neat?
That is so cool.
Yep. Then we have from Proverbs chapter 20, verse 29, it says, "The gray hair of experience is the splendor of the old." The Bible is replete with a number of references to valuing the wisdom and experience of older adults. King Solomon of ancient Israel is credited in 1 Kings chapter 4, verse 32 with writing 3,000 proverbs. His Proverbs 20 declaration about the stateliness of gray hair warms the heart of seniors everywhere. And then the last one, this was Robert Browning. "Grow old along with me. The best is yet to be, the last of life for which the first was made." The English poet and playwright Robert Browning extends an invitation to age well by viewing one's final years as the best yet to be. He takes it a step further by declaring that our first seasons of life were actually made for enjoying our last of life. It's as if Browning is saying, old age, game on.
Oh, my word.
I like that.
I want to get the copy of that from you.
Yeah, absolutely.
And you know what's interesting about that is, like, in America, we do everything backwards from the Chinese way they do it, because we spoil the crap out of everybody as they get older and older, and then do less and less
when
as
people
they
get
age.
older. Yeah.
Isn't that something?
Yep.
Because we need to cherish these people.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I do think it is a gem, a treasure.
Oh, isn't that something? I love that so much.
Yeah.
I'm totally stealing that from you.
You can have it.
Thank you.
Awesome. And we'll link it on the show notes too. So
Righto.
if anybody out there needs that wisdom.
Yep.
Yeah,
we need to go back to that kind of thing. More and more respect for our elders.
Cool. Well, if you have an uplifting story, again, also like the verses, go ahead and send those to the caregivenpodcast@gmail.com.
Yep.
Cool.
Yep.
Oxygen. Let's talk about oxygen therapy.
Yeah.
What is it?
It's a big deal. It is a big deal. And it's also a little font. So excuse me as I get my readers on. So oxygen therapy is a treatment that provides you with extra oxygen, a gas that your body needs to work well. Normally, your lungs absorb oxygen from the air. However, some diseases and conditions can prevent you from getting enough oxygen. Oxygen may help you function better and be more active. And it is supplied in a metal cylinder or other container, and it flows through a tube and is delivered into your lungs in one of these ways. Excuse me, through a nasal cannula that consists of 2 small plastic tubes. You've seen them.
Yep.
And then you've got the hose through the face mask, which fits over your nose and mouth. And then there's also a way that's not as common, is a small tube inserted into your windpipes through the front of your neck. Your doctor will use a needle or a small incision to place the tube. So we won't talk about that one. Yeah. But anyway, so we deal with a lot of people in home that have oxygen.
Yep.
And so that is why I thought it's very important for people to know the basics of oxygen.
Yeah. So basically, kind of just an overview of how to learn how oxygen therapy works. It helps if you can understand how the respiratory system works. So the system is a group of organs and tissues that help you breathe, and the respiratory system includes the airways and the lungs. The airways carry oxygen-rich air to your lungs, and then they also carry the carbon dioxide, which is a waste gas, out of the lungs. Air is going to enter your body through your nose or mouth, which moistens and warms the air. The air then travels through your voice box and down your windpipe. The windpipe divides into 2 tubes called the bronchi that enter into your lungs. And then once within your lungs, your bronchi branch into thousands of smaller, thinner tubes, bronchioles, and they end in bunches of tiny round air sacs. It's crazy.
Yeah.
The human body is crazy, but each of those air sacs is actually covered in a mesh of tiny blood vessels called capillaries, and then the capillaries connect to the network of arteries and veins that move blood throughout your body. So when the air reaches the air sacs, the oxygen in the air passes through the sac walls into the blood and the capillaries. The oxygen-rich blood then travels to the heart through the pulmonary vein and its branches, and the heart pumps it into your organs. So basically, certain acute and chronic diseases or conditions can affect the transfer of oxygen into your blood. So basically, things like pneumonia or COPD, they can interfere with, I guess, the way that oxygen gets into your blood. And your doctor might decide that you need to have oxygen therapy based on different test results that they do. And it's essentially considered medicine.
Right.
Oxygen is medicine.
Right.
So if your body is not able to do it without help, your doctor may end up prescribing it to you.
Right. And some people need it always after they've had a situation or an attack of some sort. But some people, it's just actually a temporary deal. And you actually have a story about that.
Yeah. So when grandma ended up with COVID, she had to have oxygen. And gosh, I think she had it for maybe even a year.
Wow.
But she was able to, at home, she had a concentrator, a very large concentrator. And then we, from Granny, had a small portable concentrator that she was able to take with her on, short trips. But yeah, she needed it because she was down in the low 90s regularly without the help of that. But the cool thing is she was able to have that for, like I said, I think it was about a year, and then able to wean off of it to now her body is doing what it needs to do without the additional assistance.
Wow. Yep. That's great. That's great. And usually they say that oxygen therapy is usually safe, but it can pose a fire hazard. So we'll be talking about that. But quite often when you go into a home, there is a sign that says oxygen in use. So put out your cigarette.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. I think I remember a story of some friends of mine from high school. One of them had a grandma, and she was just a tough old bird. She was on oxygen. She was not supposed to be smoking. They caught her out in the garage, and I'm fairly certain she had her oxygen on, and they, Grandma, what are you doing? And as she's starting to talk, there's like little puffs of smoke coming out of her mouth.
Nothing.
Oh, terrible. Nothing at all.
Yeah.
Yeah,
She's like
so
that
dangerous.
Puff the Magic Dragon. Oh my gosh.
Totally busted.
Oh my gosh. So way back when, I actually worked with a community program called Tag and Tap. And what that program was about tobacco use. And what we would do is these kids that got tickets for tobacco use that were young, they would have to come to these classes and learn what tobacco was doing to you.
Oh, okay.
And besides this being a court-ordered class, so they didn't want to be there, we would have like the lungs that were in formaldehyde to show a healthy lung.
Oh, yeah.
And then one that had some kind of a tumor or stuff. And then one of the things that we did that people should just do this once in their life just to understand, because if you don't have breathing issues, you take it for granted.
Sure.
But what we would do is we would take a little stir straw, the little ones, have them plug their nose, plug their nose, put the little
Could
straw.
you demonstrate that again, please?
Plug your nose, put the little straw in your mouth, and try to breathe through that for a minute.
Oh, I would die.
It's the worst.
I would feel so
It's the
claustrophobic.
worst. And that is what we were trying to say. If you continue with smoking, or this is what happens when your body diminishes its ability to bring in the oxygen.
Oh my gosh.
And it freaks you out.
I'm going to try that. I mean,
you can't, I'll bet you make it 15 seconds.
probably not even.
Yeah. It's so suffocating.
Yeah.
And so when people have that also makes you appreciate when people have those oxygen deficiencies, what they may feel. Because that's scary. But what a cool, just easy.
Yeah, that's a pretty cool demonstration.
Yeah. To say this
That would change my mind for sure.
Oh my goodness. Yeah. So anyway, that was just, I digress. So who needs oxygen therapy? So like your grandma.
Yep. So she had this acute situation, right, where it's not a long-term or ongoing. So thankfully she was able to use it for a period of time. Basically, acute situations or some diseases and conditions that might require short-term would be pneumonia, any type of a severe asthma attack, respiratory distress syndromes. And then you kind of go into the chronic diseases that maybe require more of a long-term. Those would be things like COPD, cystic fibrosis. There are some sleep-related breathing disorders that really can impact the oxygen in the blood during your sleep. So
Right.
I'm sure that's not all inclusive, but those are just a few things that might lead you to that point of needing it.
Right. So to use oxygen, it's supplied in three forms: as compressed gas, as liquid, or as a concentrated form taken from the air. The compressed oxygen gas is stored under pressure in metal cylinders. Everybody has seen those.
Yep.
The cylinders come in many sizes. Some are small enough to carry around for the portable, like you were talking about. You can get one put on small wheeled carts or in a shoulder bag or backpack. Liquid oxygen is very cold. When released from its container, the liquid becomes gas, and the liquid oxygen is delivered in your home in a large container. From this container, smaller portable units can be filled. And so there's advantages and disadvantages of both, of course. And then the concentrators are the big things at the house, and you can put those in one place. And then a lot of people just have feet and feet and feet of hose. So they're able to get up to go to the potty or go to the bathroom, to the kitchen or any of that. But then things that I always worry about is making sure that they don't get wrapped around it and become a fall hazard. So there's multiple levels of this. Anyway, so there's just so many different, very cool and easy. They've made it easy.
For sure.
Because after you got the script written from the doctor, you were able to go to the oxygen place.
Yep.
And didn't they just quickly give you a tutorial?
Yep. They just kind of lined us out with all of the equipment and said, this is how you do it. And I'm pretty sure there was a handout on the steps.
Yeah.
And,
Yeah.
you just take it home and this is how you set it up and this is what you do.
Right.
It was pretty easy
Yeah.
to figure out for sure.
Yeah.
And then they will come and service it. So like home medical equipment, people, they don't just 100% turn you loose. I mean, there is follow-up.
Right.
For sure.
Right.
But yeah, she had the concentrator in the home. And like you were saying, there were feet and feet and feet of hose to be able to get to wherever she would need to be. You just then have to make sure that you don't create a fall risk for yourself.
Oh my goodness.
Because it took a little bit of time to figure out how to maneuver.
Oh yeah. It's a new thing to have to learn.
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah. Huh.
And they basically, the delivery, most often oxygen is given through that nasal cannula. It's just the two tubes that go in your nose holes and wrap around your ears, I think.
Yeah. Yeah. I got to tell you, when Grandma was in the hospital most recently, she started getting really raw under her little holes.
Yep.
And so I went up and I was just like, can't you use Vaseline or something. So I went up to the nurse's station. I said, do you have some Vaseline? And the one gal's like, oh, yeah, let me grab you some. And the other, thankfully, a nurse was there. And she goes, what are you using it for? And I go, oh, Grandma's nose is just raw. We need something.
Right.
And she goes, oh, you can't use Vaseline.
Right.
Because you can't use petroleum products.
Yes.
Or that can potentially start a fire.
Yes.
And I was like,
I think they actually do sell something specific.
yeah. And
for
I would
that.
have not known that. Who knows those things until they have to learn it like that? And I've been around oxygen quite a bit, and I never in my life had even thought about that.
Yeah, you wouldn't.
Yeah.
think.
So all I wanted was to take away Grandma's pain from her little nose being so darn raw. So anyway, good
What they end up
catch.
giving you? Did they give you anything?
They had another kind of jelly-ish,
Something,
product.
just not a petroleum
just
based.
not yeah. I can't remember exactly what it was, but came in a little squeezy tube
Right.
in a Q-tip.
I wonder why that. It's got to be something with the
Petroleum.
mixture
Yeah.
of the oxygen and the petroleum.
Yeah.
That
Yeah,
Wow.
I don't know.
okay. So those of you out there listening, pay attention. No Vaseline
No
with your
Vaseline
oxygen
with
and
your
your nose cannulas.
Right.
You don't want to create a different problem for yourself.
My word, goodness, yeah.
Then there's also face masks, and those are held in place with just a strap that goes around your head. I don't think that would be very fun. I do think they use them in the hospital, I think, more.
Well, actually, when I had my small procedure that we
Oh.
shall not talk about, my last memory prior to going into the room was the anesthesiologist coming at me with the nose thing with the bag,
oh, the whole mask.
and I was like, he's not doing something right because I'm still awake.
so
And that's
sassy.
all I saw was this guy coming along and covering up my face. And I was out.
That's so funny. I think about that too with my MRI when I was just like so sassy about that. I'm like, I'm not ready. And then you wake up.
Yeah.
You're like,
I was like,
oh, guess
hey.
I was ready.
I'm not in the same room I was when I started. What else is not the same here?
Maybe they do know what they're doing. You were backseat colonoscopying.
Oh, thank you for the reminder, Inga.
Sorry.
I can't wait till you have your first one.
You'll
Paybacks,
never
baby.
know.
Paybacks, baby.
Yeah, I don't think I'm going to share that information with anyone.
You will.
I will. I have a few years, though.
Lordy.
All right. So what to expect before oxygen therapy? Talk to us about that.
Okay, so if there's an emergency, they're just going to start oxygen immediately.
Right.
They're going to get that in there. But a lot of times they don't do it. They put that little thingy on your finger,
Yep.
O2 sat monitor,
Yep.
and it will immediately tell you what your number is. And up to 100 is really good. You get down to 90, you're a little worrisome. Down in the 80s, 70s, you got big
Real,
problems going on. But they can also tell by a blood gas where they take your blood, and it will tell, what amount of oxygen is in your blood, and if you need to be needing it just for that immediate, or if it's going to be something that it's going to be a long-term deal,
Ongoing, yeah.
yeah. So basically, if that's the case, then the physician will simply just write a script.
So I have a weird question for you. Is it ever a situation where so if you get oxygen, it's probably just, it's put on you and it stays on all the time? Or do you go and have a drag on your oxygen tank, or how does it?
You know what?
'Cause,
I think people do that.
Okay.
Yeah. Well, one of our people, one of our caregivers, just got pneumonia.
Yes.
And so what had happened is she woke up in the middle of the night and could barely breathe.
Right.
And she's got asthma tendencies.
Sure.
So anyway, what she didn't know is that she had pneumonia. So she went into the hospital and they hooked her up with all the oxygen and such. They sent her home with that, and she was telling me, I can go do an activity, and then if I need it, I just go in and I put if I start to feel tired or something, I just go and take a couple puffs.
Oh, wow.
And within a week she's off of it.
Sure.
But it was there for her
If she needed it.
But she was just a sidebar, she did not work during this period of time, but she was saying that she felt very comfortable because, well, if I know my body well enough that if I feel like I'm starting to drag, my portable is right there. And so she kept it just next to her while she was recouping, and now she's completely off of it.
Right.
And she's ready to go back to work.
Sure.
So yes.
So it can be all the time, or it can be take a drag, take a hit of your oxygen when you need
well,
it.
you know what? Speaking of that, I had a friend. He actually started an oxygen bar.
Oh, wow.
And you can get those. I think they have them in Vegas and all these places. You can actually get different flavors of air. And it's supposed to, I think it's supposed to be very helpful for hangovers.
Oh.
And then also people that come and visit like Montana and we're a higher elevation higher up in the mountains. And also, you know, so he was hoping that like skiers and those people would, and it also kind of gives you a rush. And so it's really
I've even
interesting.
seen like at Murdoch's, they sell cans of oxygen.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, yeah. What is it? The Lorax. Dr. Seuss.
Oh, yeah.
The guy made his zillions by doing canned air. And that's crazy because I'm in air all the time. But what do they say in that movie? Put it in a can. People will buy it.
It's probably why they have it in cans and people are buying it.
I have not. Yes. Okay. What to expect during oxygen therapy. So basically, just know that they're going to set the controls to how many liters you should get.
That's the other thing. When Grandma Fisher started on it, she was at a higher liters, right? But as she was getting better and kind of weaning, so that matters also.
Yeah. Yeah.
And there's like a limit on how high you can go.
Well, remember the one client we had
Yes.
that became so dependent. And we're going to talk about dependency in just a minute.
Yep.
But right here, we'll just talk about him. He became so freaked out when he felt that he couldn't breathe, that he would just jack
Crank it
everything up to the max. And that's not good.
Right. Because then he would go through his prescription, you know, maybe it's a 2-week prescription and within a week he's used up all of his oxygen.
All gone. And he would call us panicking because he was out of oxygen.
Yeah.
And I think that he created himself such a problem. And we worked with him as much as we could. We worked with the oxygen company, and they understood the situation too, and tried very many different ways to get him to relax, to just say, don't go over 4 liters or whatever. I think the standard is usually like 2 liters. And but he would have it that baby max to 6 or whatever it was.
And basically it's like any other prescription medication, right? So if you get a prescription for sleeping pills or whatever, you are required, you have a responsibility to follow the prescription as ordered, but he did not. He would overuse and then
how sad. How sad, because he would just panic.
Yep.
He would just panic that he wasn't able to breathe. And so much of that was because he was so triggered by it. And when you panic, you just shut down. Like we were talking earlier, he just shut down, freaked out, probably wasn't even barely, you know, when you do a big breath, he wouldn't do that. He was probably doing more of that.
Yep. That
and then you get that
type.
hyperventilating thing. Yeah. But he was a mess.
Yeah. It was very sad.
Oh, so sad.
So things to remember when you are on oxygen therapy: don't smoke or be around people who are smoking. Don't use paint thinners, cleaning fluids, gasoline, aerosol sprays, or other flammable materials.
There you go.
Definitely not Vaseline.
Yeah.
Stay at least 5 feet away from gas stoves, from candles, and other heat sources. And let's see, when you're not using the oxygen, keep it in a large, airy room. Never store the compressed oxygen gas cylinders or liquid oxygen containers in small enclosed places, such as closets, behind curtains, or under clothes. Yep. And it does say that oxygen containers let off small amounts of oxygen, and these amounts can actually build up to be harmful levels if they're allowed to escape in small spaces.
Isn't that interesting? Going back to the never smoke.
Oh, yeah.
We've had clients that have smoked.
Yes.
On oxygen, and we have had to make a policy.
Oh, yeah.
That if you're going to smoke and you have oxygen on, we cannot be in the house.
Yes, we will not be there.
Honest to goodness, what happens is you got your oxygen and you're smoking and you're by this flammable thing, one slip and everything blows up. The problem with that is if you're in a fire and it blows up in your face, because that's where it's going to, you automatically take a big breath.
Yep. And then
all of that goes into your lungs and you burn internally. And then there's nothing that can be done. But we've had a couple of people that smoked. He was like, gosh, darn it, I've smoked for 65 years. I will continue to smoke. And he made a decision that he was going to continue to smoke. So basically, we had to tell the family, if he's smoking, we're going to leave. We're going to step outside until he's done smoking, or whatever the case was. I don't remember the exact, but we could not be there. We were not going to put ourselves at risk because he was making a bad choice. And so it's worth life and death. It's scary.
Yeah.
It's terrible. Yeah. To make sure you're getting the full benefits of oxygen therapy, visit your doctors regularly. They'll check on your progress and adjust your oxygen therapy as needed. Never change the amount of oxygen you're taking or adjust the flow rate of the oxygen on your own. There's side effects with it. Yeah. And then talk about with your doctor for emergencies, increased shortness of breath, wheezing, other changes from your usual breathing. If you've got a fever or you've got increased mucus production, a blue tint to your lips or fingernails, that's a sign that your body isn't getting enough oxygen. Also, it causes confusion, restlessness, and more anxiety. So oxygen is one of those things that just keeps you ticking the whole time.
Yeah. And they do actually say that you might want to wear, like, if oxygen is part of your situation, you might want to even wear a medical ID bracelet.
I wish people would wear more of those. I would love for everybody to wear, I have dementia, or I have to have oxygen. Or,
well, we always say that information is power. And so if
so
the more
true.
that people can be aware of what's going on with you, the better off, especially in an emergency.
Yeah. We have 7 tips for living comfortably with oxygen at home, and we'll just kind of breeze through these because I think we probably touched most. But I love this. Talk with your family and friends in advance. Just let them know that this is going on. And I'll never forget as a little kid walking in and hearing that concentrator.
Oh, yeah.
It does a breathy.
Yeah. Yeah.
That might be a little exaggerated. It was scary. That's all I'm going to say. I was little, okay?
Okay. Make sure your family and friends know in advance.
Yes.
Also, it's really important to understand the concentrator's maintenance requirements. I had forgotten about that. But yes, it is a machine that needs to be tended to. So you got to know what it needs.
Yeah. Yep. Replace your tubing and cannulas on a schedule. It does have that moist air, and there's liquid. So they can gunk up.
Yep.
They get icky.
Yeah.
And then you're just putting those right into the old nose holes.
Just like so.
just like that. And so you don't want any more icky going in.
Yep.
Yeah.
And so with that, you also want to keep extra tubing and cannulas close at hand. Stay on top of that. I know when we first got Grandma's, I think they gave us, I don't even know, a handful of them.
Yeah. I don't know that they always did. I remember one time when we very first started, and I really didn't know a lot about oxygen, but there was somebody that panicked because for whatever reason, somebody must have stepped on their tubing and it got a rip in it. And they did not have enough. So I remember we had to run and get that for them to get it fixed at the house because they were just, thinking that they weren't going to make it because they didn't have that constant flow.
Yeah. Have a plan for power outages.
Oops.
Which is
It's
important.
a big one.
With or without oxygen.
Yep.
Clean the humidifier often. So if you use a humidifier bottle with the concentrator, you need to make sure that you're cleaning it frequently because bacteria can build up rapidly in those attachments.
Yep. Remove the bottle and wash it with soap and water weekly.
Yep. And then, of course, as we've said a million times, if we've said it once, practice fire safety.
Oh, gosh. Yes, absolutely. And the do's and don'ts of using supplemental oxygen at home. Delivery methods, they're in gas form via an oxygen cylinder. They've got the barrel-shaped metal tanks, and then the oxygen concentrator like we talked.
Yeah. So some tips and tricks. Basically, they do say some positive actions that you can take when using oxygen. Do post a sign in the room where you have your oxygen that there is to be no smoking. Do notify your local fire department that there's oxygen in the house. I hadn't heard of that, but do make sure that you have a functioning smoke alarm in or right outside the room where the oxygen is being used. And make sure that you have a fire extinguisher close at hand by the oxygen tank and that you know how to use it. Do store your oxygen system in a well-ventilated area. Do turn off your oxygen when you're not using it. Don't set the cannula or mask on the bed or a chair even for a few minutes if the oxygen is turned on. Do use 100% cotton bed linens and blankets as they are less likely to give off sparks from static electricity. Do use only water-based lubricants on your nose and lips when needed. What does it say? Like Surgilube. Yeah. Do stay at least 10 feet away from open flames such as a fireplace, gas heater or stove, candles, etc. Be sure to monitor your gauges on the oxygen equipment to make sure they're not running low. Notify your oxygen supplier within plenty of time for them to deliver refills. And do be sure to ask questions of your doctor and or the oxygen delivery person when you have them.
Right. So some actions and situations to avoid when using the oxygen is don't change the flow rate on your oxygen from what your doctor has prescribed. Basically, getting the right amount of oxygen for your condition is essential to your health. Don't smoke. Don't use petroleum-based lubricants like Vaseline, chapstick, or Blistex. See? Who knew?
Yep.
Don't use any electrical appliance while on oxygen. This includes hair dryers, curling irons, heating pads, and electric razors. I didn't know that. Don't use anything flammable around oxygen equipment, such as cleaning fluid. We talked about that. Don't cut or splice your oxygen tubing, and never use more than a 50-foot long tube.
Yep.
Don't store your oxygen in an enclosed space. Don't use vapor rubs, oil-based hand lotions, or petroleum jelly, or have oily hands when using your oxygen equipment. And don't use alcohol-based hand sanitizers. Also, with your cylinders, do store them upright. Do keep them in a place where it's not likely to get knocked over, and do not run short.
I had this irrational fear when I was driving the oxygen to my grandma's house that I was going to get into a car accident and the thing was going to like a rocket just explode me.
Oh my gosh. I know. Every time I go and get, if we go camping or anything and we need to get.
Oh, like the propane?
Propane. I always I've got a rocket ship in the back of my
yes.
rig. Scary.
I know. And then you're like nervous about other people's driving.
Don't bump me. Don't bump me.
Seems irrational, but.
Yeah. Oh my
don't run short on your oxygen and make sure that you have backup tanks available.
Yeah.
And then basically you don't want to turn your tanks on their sides. And again, you do want to keep those tanks at least 5 feet away from space heaters, electric gas heaters, steam pipes, furnaces, and radiators. And then basically with your concentrators, this is an important one. Do not use extension cords to plug your concentrator in, right? So basically if you want to plug it in right into the wall socket, you don't want to use a
surge protector.
An extension cord. So no, you can use a surge protector. Well, basically you don't want to have an extension cord that comes out and then you plug into that and then.
Right.
Yeah. Okay. And then what does it say? Do keep the unit at least 6 inches away from the wall, curtains, or anything else that might block the filter and prevent the air circulation around it. That's also going to help avoid heat buildup. And then you also want to, again, with the backup stuff, if you can get a generator or some type of, energy source in case of an emergency outage.
Right.
Yeah.
Very good. We had a interesting thing that came up where somebody actually went on oxygen and they kind of documented some of their concerns. And their biggest thing is they didn't want to grow dependent on it. So their insight was really interesting because basically he was worried about addiction. And you don't think about being addicted to oxygen, but we all are.
Right.
Because we have to have it. But he was talking about like our gentleman that we talked about earlier, who did have a dependency, and it just ruled his life. Yeah. So anyway, boy, you just once again, this is another one of those things where you have to really go into it, educate yourself, and be comfortable with what you're doing. Do not hesitate to ask your doctors to make darn sure you understand it. The other thing is when the oxygen people come in, they'll help you with whatever. They'll teach you whatever. I would suggest that not only you on oxygen know about it, but your close family members.
Yes.
Have them be there so that they understand that this concentrator or changing from the concentrator to the portable, you've got to know how to work those things.
Yeah. Well, and I was very impressed when Grandma went on oxygen. The company wasn't able to get it to her immediately. And so they had a procedure in place where family could pick it up, but then they took me through all of these steps. And I'm pretty sure I had to like take a quiz and sign off that I understood. But it was a good option because she needed it immediately. They weren't able to get to her immediately. So they had this other process in place to be able to make sure that I had enough information to safely run the machine and get her hooked up to it.
Nice.
And then they did follow up, you know, and would come and do home visits.
Oh, good.
Afterwards, just to check in and make sure everything was good.
Right. So this person that I was talking about that kind of wrote about their story, actually said something that I really thought I never would have thought about it, but it's true. What they say with oxygen is it's a visible illness. Never thought about it that way. Because if you see somebody with a portable oxygen or they got the cannula, you automatically, were you a smoker your whole life? Or, you know, why do you not have that oxygen? And she said, I hate to say it, but one thing that I did like when I got on oxygen was that people could see that my lungs are sick now. So now she was able to say, see, I told you I didn't feel good.
Right.
It's that invisible thing. I used to park in a handicap spot before I got my oxygen and would get the stare down. People were like, yeah, you look fine.
Oh, yes.
That happens so many times. At least now I don't feel like I need to explain myself. It's terrible when you are made to feel that way. I shouldn't have been worried about what these other people thought. We should remember that not all diseases or sicknesses are visible.
Wow.
Isn't that really interesting? Then the sweetest thing, tell them what they said about the grandkids.
Oh, this, what did it say? This lady had a granddaughter that was worried about her because she was struggling to catch her breath. And so this sweet little granddaughter cupped up her sweet little hands, put them to her mouth, blew into them, and then put her hands up to grandma's mouth to share her breath with me. She said, here, Nana, you can have mine. Isn't that sweet?
Oh my gosh. And basically, if you have oxygen, there's not a stigma to it. It's not. She said, my grandkids, that's how they know me. My grandkids don't know me any other way except for me to have oxygen. I have babysat them all through the years, and they have all teethed on my hose. Learn to walk around it or lift a foot while walking and not get tangled. It's so amazing to think that not one of my grandkids has tripped over my hose, learning to walk or otherwise. They also know that I may need a minute from time to time to untangle a hose, change a battery, switch a tank, and they know how to help her.
Yeah.
So just know that when you're wearing oxygen, you got to slow down.
Yeah.
You just can't be in a hurry.
Well, and I would think that if there was any sort of a stigma or your own self-consciousness about it, once you get that oxygen on and start to feel so much better, I would think that that stuff would be kind of irrelevant.
At that point, you're able to say, stuff it to everybody.
I can breathe, and that's what matters.
Yes. Oh, my word. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Ugh.
Very good. Well, tell me about your grandma saying today.
Oh, yes. What is grandma's love? A grandma is warm hugs and sweet memories. She remembers all of your accomplishments and forgets all of your mistakes.
Oh,
yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah, I love that one. That's good.
Yeah. Well, if you have not yet subscribed, please go do that. You can do it on Spotify, Google Podcasts, Apple Podcasts. You can watch us on YouTube. Leave us a review. Share us with your friends. Please go and join our Apaga Care and Share Facebook group and send in your verses and your uplifting stories and grandma sayings. We want them all. So you can email those to thecaregivenpodcast@gmail.com.
Please do it.
Yeah. Peace out, Girl Scouts.
Have a good day.